Okay. Getting closer. Getting closer. Excuse me. Hey there, Eshkatite. How you doing? Okay. So, I'll import my link statement. And we'll change this guy to target name. And we'll say that the actual target is going to be go through all of the game objects in this room to lower and trim. So I'm making them, whatever comes in, all lowercase and no white space on the other side. So we do the same thing for the target name. All right, I'm going to try this name in chat. Hasatsu? Might be close. Japanese is horrible. Well, another case. Hey there, Haitatsu. Watashi wa eri desu. Okay. So, I want to find the target by the name that comes through. And presumably I will, right? And the target is now just going to be target. And the sender is just going to be the player. Okay. So it looks good so far. Again, then there's, as we see over and over again as we're making this game, when we create an algorithm, at least my preference is to start with very broad strokes, very clumsy, almost, very procedural, very scripty, and then see what repeats. Like just use it as a sounding board, and then be like, okay, well this is all conforming to the same, it's the same kind of central line. I can definitely refactor this. So again, we're saying this is a place to refactor. All right, but this looks good. I get the response back, and then everything is going to display that command. Let's make response something up here. Game response. Let's just set that. And it's the very last thing we do for the command parser. We'll display the response. Okay, and we're getting a little red squiggly that says response might not be initialized before accessing. So that little bit of IntelliSense is telling us that we haven't set response in all of our cases. So if it falls all the way through to here, there's a chance it might not be instantialized and we'll get a runtime exception. We accept that. Hopefully we'll plug those gaps here in a second. All right. And there was a bug yesterday that we saw with when we were beating Gary to death, which I might leave this in as like a test, just so I can, regardless of where we get with this game or what we're doing, I can always see Gary getting beaten to death. So we have a little bit of fun with that test case. Run the test case, beat Gary to death, and then we just see that happen. And we'll know if Gary gets beat to death that all is right with the world. That'll be our green check mark for if the game is still working. Okay. So what else do we need to do? Doop-a-doop-a-doop. We're displaying that command. What was I saying? Oh yeah, there's a bug. There's a bug in my render. So yesterday when we were beating Gary to death, the status line wasn't updating. And inside of our render, that's because when we hit display command, we were always drawing the status bar with the sender's stuff. So, which makes sense. It's not a terrible bug in this sense, but when we changed it over to Beth, Beth wasn't technically the sender. It's weird. It got weird. We always want it to be Gary. We always want to show Gary's thing, right? We don't want to show Beth's. We don't want to show Beth's status bar when we're playing as Gary. So we're going to pull that out. And then we're going to say, so this way display command is not doing two things. That was really the problem. We're asking display command to display the command and draw the status bar. It was no good. FDX7 asks, what is this? Well, FDX7, this is a text-based multi-user dungeon in its infant stages. What we're doing is every week going through and looking at a new design pattern in C#. This is week 6. And so every time we learn a new design pattern, we're applying that to the game. So if you went back to the first week and checked the game out of GitHub, where's a link below, you would only see the factory pattern. But now we have 6 patterns, and we've gotten to the point where we actually need to play the game. So this week, along with the Flyweight pattern, we are adding in a little command parser so we can actually, play. Okay. Draw status bar is here. It's public static void, as we all knew it to be. But my IntelliSense isn't picking it up. Let that be a lesson that IntelliSense won't do everything for you. Okay. So, let's grab this guy. Make this target name. FDX7 asks, so this is Visual Basic. No, it's C#. I don't really have anything against Visual Basic. I don't code in if I can help it. You'll find some very opinionated people out there. And the industry is moving, or has moved, to really a C# standard for Visual Studio. It's kind of like, that's really your first-class citizen. Other languages can fill the role of a first-class citizen and do a passable job. But more and more, everything you see is going to be C# first and then everything else. The powers that be at Microsoft might not like me saying that because they're really trying to brand Visual Studio as this everything IDE, but that is the state of affairs, for better or worse. Okay. So, I still get this switch quickly because I've got one little else statement here that's not really getting populated, as well as I need to populate my response everywhere else. Okay. So, as some of you are seeing from our previous refactors, there's only a few things that are changing. And we've done a very similar refactor before, so the only thing that's changing between these requests is fight and negotiate. So we could easily pass this off to a helper that says, hey, just get me the command and get me the target, right? And we might do that here in a second. We might do a refactor in place. I don't typically do it, but since this is one we've seen before, it might be a good exercise just to get it all down and then watch it collapse right before our very, very eyes. Right before our very eyes. Okay. So change that. Change that. Change that. All right. So now, for everything that comes in, and this is, right now this is really kind of our makeshifty adapter pattern, which we might get into next week, depending on how well it serves us here. FDX7 says, wow, my programming class, we're starting, or in my programming class, we're starting with Visual Basic. You know, nothing terribly wrong with it. I don't know. It's not whole. It's a programming language, and people out there will tell you that you're learning to code, right? You're not learning a language. You're learning software craftsmanship. It's a pretty common tenet. So I will say that if I were teaching a class in college, in high school even, I'd probably start with the thing that's going to give you the most traction when you go home and Google. But better or worse, at least you're learning. And if you want to, I don't, not to overwhelm you, but there's a really good down in the area below the video. There's a great Intro to C# course. And if you're curious just to see the differences between things, maybe not learn C#, but if you're in a class and they say, hey, this is how you assign variables, and say do things, it might be fun to find the corresponding course or lesson in that tutorial and just kind of see, just kind of keep your brain open. Don't get locked into a Visual Basic way of thinking. Really say, okay, the concept we're learning is a variable. Here's a couple different ways of looking at it, and I'm going to be tested on Visual Basic. Ashkard says that I am a C# evangelist. I am. Keep saying that. Hopefully Microsoft will hear you and offer me an evangelist job. Okay, so our last thing here is going to be a tricky one. It means that we didn't find anything. We still need to return a response. So response is going to equal to new game response. And we'll leave everything blank except for message is equal to we'll say, sorry, nothing matched your request. We'll say was successful is false. And then for the actual request, it has to be something. We'll say new game request. I don't think we should actually populate that with anything. So we're just going to leave it blank. And if we bomb out, we bomb out. Okay. So now we've got this. Sorry for the fast scrolling. So now we've got this adapter, this thing that we can call, that's in turn going to properly form our request and pass it off to the hive mind. Let's see how far that gets us into cleaning up a lot of this stuff, right? So let's get rid of Beth, or we'll comment out Beth. Let's comment on all this stuff. This is going to all go in the land of example, the examples of yesteryear. Okay. And so I hold down Control and I tap K and C to comment out selections. And I don't want to give Gary anything because I'm going to be Gary now. Okay. So there's still a bit that we're not automating, because ideally you'd log into the game, some sort of membership provider would know who you are and load your character.